A lot of people think executive presence is either something you have or you don't, like it's a natural gift. But the truth is, executive presence is a skill. It's one you can practice, strengthen, and grow over time. And when the stakes are high, it's not just about the skill itself anymore. It's about having a strategy to use so you know how to have executive presence in any moment. After decades of coaching and working alongside leaders at the world's biggest brands, we at Duarte define executive presence as this: the ability to connect, influence, and stay composed no matter the room or the moment. And in this video, I'll show you 6 practical steps that you can use to fast track your executive presence. So when the moment matters most, you are the one driving everyone toward the end goal. Step 1, be clear about your what and why. Executive presence doesn't mean saying more. It means making sure everything you say is connected to a single, powerful idea. At Duarte, we call this the big idea. It's the North Star that guides your message. Here's the key. Your big idea isn't just a fact or a finding. It is a clear recommendation framed as both what you believe and what's at stake if nothing changes or if everything changes. For example, instead of saying, turnover increased 15% this quarter, a big idea would be, we need to invest in management training now because poor leadership is costing us $1.2 million a year in turnover. See the difference? I bet you feel the difference. One is an observation, and the other is a point of view that demands a decision. But here's a caveat for you. Sometimes you will say the big idea out loud, and other times it just stays behind the scene as your own compass. Either way, if you don't know it, your audience won't know it either. So before your next high-stakes moment, sit down and ask yourself, what is the one sentence that captures your unique point of view and what's at stake for the audience if they accept it or reject it? Step 2, only talk about what your audience needs to hear. When the stakes are high, you have to be clear. And I'm talking crystal clear. The clearest pane of glass without a single smudge or a streak, kind of clear. It is your job to make it easy for the person in front of you to know exactly what you believe and what you want them to do. At Duarte, we use a tool called the Audience Needs Map to help get here. The idea behind it is that clarity starts when you know what your audience values, fears, and needs in order to make a decision. So think about the last presentation that you gave, or an important meeting, or maybe a time where you recorded a memo and sent it along to people. Did you ask yourself, what keeps my audience up at night? And then did you dig deeper into why they might have that fear, even if that fear really has nothing to do with the ask you're making? And then did you let yourself sit and feel that fear on their behalf? My guess is you didn't do that. And hey, if you did, gold star for you. You're on your way to becoming a rock star when it comes to presence. But if you didn't, think about how powerful that moment could have been if you did. How it might have maybe led you to frame your ask differently, or maybe use a different example or tell a different story, or have some genuine moment of connection with the people you were trying to persuade. Think about it like this. The board doesn't want the same detail as your engineering team, and your CFO doesn't process the same way as your head of product. So instead of creating a one-size-fits-all explanation, shape your message to be clear for the people you are talking to. For a board update, clarity might mean one crisp chart with a one line of implication. For a leadership team, it might mean having a back appendix full of context and then being able to explain trade-offs. For your own team, it might mean painting a vision and walking them through very clear next steps. So I don't want you to water it down. That's not what I mean by clarity, but I do want you to remove the noise so the signal is loud and clear. When you do this, people don't just understand you, they trust you. So before your next high-stakes moment, ask yourself, what does this audience need to know to decide? And then strip away everything else. Step 3, match your body language to the moment. Everyone's executive presence comes off a bit different, and we think that's great. We don't want every board and meeting room to be filled with replicas of one another. All of that variety usually comes down to the way different people use body language to match the moment. At Duarte, we coach leaders to use posture, voice, pacing, even silence, all as a signal that can help the audience know what they're supposed to do next. And the key is in the alignment. You want to make sure that the delivery is matching your intent, because then people believe you more. There are going to be times when you want to get loud, when you have a lot of conviction, like if your team just blew past their quarterly goals and they hit their stretch goals. That means it's time to get loud and celebrate. There are times to slow down, like when you want a point to really sink in. Maybe your team is talking about a customer success story. Maybe they're sharing it with a potential customer. So they might say, after this implementation, our customer saw a 22% increase in profit. And there are times to pause. when you want the audience to reflect or you want to show you're being thoughtful, like when you have to share difficult company news, maybe about a layoff, and you want to stress how important these colleagues were to getting us to where we are. But now the future is going to require a different plan. When your feelings match the moment, your audience knows how they're supposed to feel. Here's a fast track tip for you. Just pick one sentence in an upcoming meeting or presentation that you have, and make a decision. I'm going to use my voice to drive the point home. Decide. Are you going to get loud? Maybe quiet. Maybe you should speed it up, or is this the place to slow it down? What you choose is all going to depend on your goal and what you want to accomplish with this audience. And if you want to dive deeper into this idea, we have a video of the 4 body language secrets that give you instant executive presence. Watch that and unpack some of the techniques that we use to coach leaders every day. Step 4, invite pushback in high stakes moments. You're going to get it. Someone is going to throw you a curveball. Someone's going to outright disagree with your idea. And the quickest way to lose presence is to get flustered or defensive or start rambling. Of course you feel caught off guard. Of course you're protective of your idea and your plan. You worked hard on it and you believe in it. But people with executive presence, they don't make these moments look like a time for defeat. They meet them with curiosity. They are appreciative. They've got a growth mindset about how this reaction or response or criticism might make the whole idea or plan better for everyone, all thanks to a person for pushing back. At Duarte, we teach something called adaptive listening. It's a method for adapting the way you process and respond so you can be a better listener for the people talking to you. There are 4 different listening styles. They map to 4 different listening goals, but for now, I'm only going to talk about one of them, immerse listening. This is when you listen with the goal of understanding what the other person is saying to you. Here's how this might play out in a meeting. You give your idea or your plan, and someone says, I'm not convinced this idea is even worth the investment. So instead of you rushing to more numbers or defending the plan, you pause. You take a breath. You lean into curiosity, and you say, ooh, that's a fair point. Talk to me about what you think the riskiest part of this plan is. And then you have just switched from a moment of confrontation to collaboration. So the next time that you find yourself in a situation where the tension starts to rise, lock into the immerse listening, lean in with curiosity, and use it as a moment where pushback makes the idea better. Step 5, don't just ask, paint the vision. The reason you're working on executive presence is because you want to move people to act. It's not like you're trying to add something else on your checklist to get through. You're doing all of this work because you have goals you want to achieve, and you know those goals require a different person to do something. Now, I'm sure it is not going to shock you when I say that all great communication should end with a call to action. This is not new information, but here's the part that might not be known to you. The strongest calls to action don't just tell people what you want them to do next. They give your audience a glimpse of a better future when they say yes. They paint a picture of your audience's future world, how it is transformed because of the yes. At Duarte, we call this the new bliss. Here's a powerful example of a leader who did this on a world stage.
Let us pick up our books and our pens. They are our most powerful weapons. One child, one teacher, one book, and one pen can change the world. Education is the only solution. Education first. Thank you.
Malala didn't just make an appeal for education. She didn't just ask for some money. She painted a vision of a future in one unforgettable line. One child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world. So once you figure out your call to action, what you want your audience to do, go a step further. Define what the future reward will look like for the audience. Detail how their lives will actually be better or easier. And if you can, describe how people in the world will thrive when your idea is put into action. A clear ask with a compelling vision is presence in action. Step 6, continue to influence even after you leave the room. Executive presence doesn't stop when the meeting ends. The way you follow up often determines whether your message fades away or it shapes decisions after you've left. But most people just forget this part. They deliver, they log off, they breathe a sigh of relief, and they move on to the next item on their list. But influence can linger. And the way people remember and share and act on your message is in your control. And that is where a strong leave behind comes in. One of the favorites we have at Duarte is something we pioneered called the slide doc. It is a document built in slide format. So unlike a typical presentation deck, a slide doc is meant to be read, not presented. It blends visuals plus enough context so someone can scan it later and still understand the message, or so someone can pass it to someone who wasn't even in the audience of your presentation or meeting, and they'd still understand what was happening. So if your slides were meant to be spoken to, message would get lost if you sent them around. But a slide doc, that's a recap, and it extends your presence beyond the moment. Now, your voice won't be there to carry it forward, but your message and visuals will. So after your next high-stakes moment, I want you to download our free slides doc template. I left a link for you in the comments. Use it to reinforce the big idea and tell people clearly the next steps you want them to take. This is how your presence keeps working for you long after you've left the room. I hope I've convinced you executive presence isn't a gift, it is a skill. And now you have 6 steps so you can fast track it. Be clear about what the ask is. Make sure you're only telling the audience what they need. Match your body language to the moment, invite the pushback you're gonna get, and make sure you paint a vision and continue to influence long after you've left. These are 6 practical moves. You could make them now before your very next meeting, and it will help you show up with presence. And if you do want to go deeper on the delivery side of presence, check out that video on body language. I've gone ahead and I've linked it below. Did I just make it all seem too easy? Maybe. But presence really does get easier the more you start practicing these moves. So give them a shot and drop me a comment to let me know how it's going.